Good evening, folks, and welcome to the episode 2 of our School Sports and All edition. Next to me is my co-host Dan. Good evening, Dan.
How's it, Lau?
How was your week?
Good, thanks. And yourself?
It was great, considering that, unfortunately, thanks to the Department of Education, they sort of put a hold on all contact sports and put a bit of a hamper on our show. But that doesn't stop us. We're back here again tonight, and we've got a great lineup for us this evening. And we're diving into a non-contact sport, and we're going to deal with some surfing. And we've got some great interviews that we did this week, and hopefully we'll show that later on in the show. But otherwise than that, it's been an eventful week.
It has. It's pretty about the rugby and the hockey not being played this week. I think there would have been some big games lined up for this weekend, and it's basically disappointing, for the kids and for the players, especially those. We feel for those that are in matric. We don't want them to go through the same episode that happened last year. So let's hope for the best, and hopefully that there will be some light at the end of this tunnel. And let's see what happens.
Yeah, folks, like we said, unfortunately, we all fall under the education department at the schools, and our show is to showcase their talent, no matter what it is, whether it be hockey, surfing, water polo, rugby, cricket. And so please, if you have any information out there about any young talented sportsmen, please give Dan and us a call. Our number is at the bottom of the screen on 068 500 36 35. You can send us a WhatsApp, or you can email us on eaglesportslive@gmail.com. We'll be back shortly, just after the break, and Dan's going to run through last week's prizes for the top try and top goal. So we'll see you straight after the break.
Welcome back to the show. Last week we had tries and goals of the week, where you viewers at home voted for who you thought scored the best try and the best goal. The winners for the best goal of the week went to Bailey Conway from Selborne College, and the try of the week went to Lindani Dweber from Hudson Park. Congratulations, guys, on your achievement. We also would like to say thanks to Winmore Junction for sponsoring the prize for the try of the week, and to Work Africa for sponsoring the prize for the goal of the week. Viewers at home, please, if you have any footage of trials or goals, please send it to us, so that in our next program we can put it on, and the people can vote for who they thought scored the best try and best goal. After the break, we will have Lal back with news and other results.
Right, so we're going to the results for this past week. We don't have many results for this past week. Nothing really happened on the weekend since the Department of Education put a hold or suspension to all contact sports. But what we do have, we were sent through to us from Sherelle Smith, and she's the biathlon chair lady for East London. And she sent us the results for the Eastern Cape trials that took place in Port Elizabeth. Here are those results coming up now. To all those biathlon or biathletes that took part in that Eastern Cape trials. We don't have the results of the teams yet, due to the fact that with news last week of the department putting suspension on all sports, they're just holding back once they find a venue and once they get a date for that SA biathlon competition to take place. They will then announce their team, and I'm sure that we will get that team, and we will announce it on the show later on in the week. We're coming up shortly is the new interview with Greg Emsley, and that will take place straight after the advert. And good evening, folks, and welcome back. And with me is a legend in surfing circles, not only in East London, but in South Africa, and actually probably in the world. We have Greg Emsey sitting next to me. Greg, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, Lyle. Thanks for inviting me to come and talk surfing. And very happy to be here this evening.
Awesome. We were chatting earlier on, and Greg and I went back 26 years. It's actually longer that we've known each other. But the last time that we had a good conversation about surfing was when we were in Matric. We were in the same base class. And we found out a year later that Greg eventually went pro in '96 and was a pro for 14 years on the pro circuit. And during that time, Greg won 5 World Tour events. He was the current, I don't know if he's the current, but he is the World Masters champion. He holds the record for the most South African Open titles of 5. He has 14 South African titles in total in different age groups. He is the current South African Olympic surfing coach. He is the father of 2, and obviously he's married to Shantae. Greg, it's nice to have you on here, and we're going to get into some deep discussions later on. But first of all, I want to know, when I was doing my bio on you, I found out that you had a nickname called Bigfoot. Now, can you explain to our viewers, where does Bigfoot come from?
Well, my feet are pretty big. They're only size 9, but I'm not the tallest person out there, and they just look long. And I think surfing my whole life has shaped my feet around the surfboard. But basically where the name came from, when I was about 13 or 14, we had a pro-amateur event at Nahoon Reef, and all the top surfers from around the country and a few international guys were here, and nobody knew who I was. And I did quite well in the event. I think I got through to about the quarterfinals or something, and I was walking out for one of my heats, and all the top guys were sitting there, and one of them popped up, "Sheepers, look how big this guy's feet are," and everyone started laughing. I just heard Bigfoot, 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 and basically the name Bigfoot stuck ever since.
That's awesome how we get nicknames as we go through. As a lighter, you always get found something about you, and then it stays with you for life. Greg, just a quick one from your side. I know you've been surfing for a long time. What age did you find yourself surfing at? What age did you start surfing at?
I started surfing at 7 years old, so which was quite rare for guys in our sort of era. I think obviously found it more by luck than anything else. We did all the sports at school. We did rugby and tennis and everything, and of course we tried all the outside sports that we heard of, BMXing, skateboarding. And then one day my older brother came back, Don, and said, "Oh, we're going to go into surfing now. Let's go try surfing." Got some boards from back then, Pollock Sports, put them on the roof. They blew off the roof on the way home. We had to try and patch them up. But that was the start. We started surfing. I just followed what my brothers did. So, and we never, that was the one sport we never ever looked back on. We just surfed our whole lives from that moment.
It sort of became like you were like not an outcast in those days. I mean, we're talking about in the mid-'80s, early '90s, where a lot of sports, were sort of being, I would say, tested out. I remember in our days it was skateboarding, and then you would go and, if you were surfing, you were like part of an exclusively outcast sort of group. You were like, how can you say, weird or different.
100%. That's what it was like. I had friends that weren't allowed to surf, and all they wanted to do was surf. And my dad was, who wasn't a surfer. I don't know why, but he was just very supportive of it. He loved it. So we would hide them in the combi and take them surfing. And that was definitely what the sport was. And even up until when I turned pro, it still had that stigma about it. And I tell you what, from the day I turned pro till the day I ended my career, 14 years, how that sport turned around is just unreal. The professionalism and it's just people traveling with managers, coaches, all that stuff. So it changed, and it's become an extremely professional sport now.
Having said that, I mean, if you look back from 1995, let's say when we were in Matric, and I mean, we're talking 26 years now, would you ever have thought that we would be sitting together now, 26 years later, discussing a good professional career that you had, going back then, and thinking about the fact being that you've got opportunity now of going even to the Olympics? Would it ever have come across your mind 26 years ago as a young lighty, turning 18, thinking about where would this sport take you?
Well, I think, you would have thought 26 years would never come. It seems so far away when you're that young, you honestly don't think you're ever going to get older.
Yeah.
And I mean, you probably don't feel like you're much older, to be honest. And I don't either. But yeah, time just flies. But no, I definitely didn't think that we'd be sitting here. I didn't think the surfing would be in the Olympics. And it was a long, long road. I mean, there was probably talk about it already back then, and it was a long road to get it into the Olympics. And it's going to be interesting to see how it pans out.
And Greg, with the Olympics obviously coming around, it's under 60 days now when I looked, and obviously the excitement with regards to hopefully that it's going to take off and get and go ahead with regards to where it's going in Tokyo. What are the preparations that you have to do as a coach regarding to ensure that the team is ready? I mean, is it a lot of work, or is it difficult because you are in East London and some of the surfers that you're dealing with are in another town?
Well, it is difficult. You know, we've had Geordie Smith, who's been away, obviously on the Australian Pro League, which is fine. He's getting the best practice he could ever ask for, surfing against the world's best. And then we've had Bianca Batenduck, who's based in Georgia, and we've done some training sessions. We had a big camp a few weeks ago in East London, and now with Geordie back, we're planning to do 2 or 3 quick short camps, 2-day camps in preparation for the final stretch. So not too much going on between now and then, so we've got time to really get into the equipment and of course get their heads around everything that's going to be happening at the Olympics and making sure they can focus on the game.
I mean, having said that, we obviously know that there's a lot going on with the COVID restrictions and things like that. I mean, does that put a hamper on your preparations going forward, and can that be a distraction for your surfers? I mean, obviously it's a massive event as it is, but now adding COVID to that could add more sort of stress on that. How do you handle that going forward with your team?
Yeah, well, everything we thought we would be doing at Olympics, we won't be doing.
Yeah.
So, and we're getting that information more and more every day. So there's a lot of noise around what's going on. So yeah, the big thing is, how do we take that noise, and it's a bit of frustration as well, like how can we do this and how can we do that, and we've got to make sure that the athletes are prepared, and I'm not worrying about that. That will be my job, to try and worry about all that and get them into a space where everyone's in the same boat. Let's worry about getting there, and whatever it takes, when that heat starts, you've got to be on the best waves and making it count. But yeah, there's a lot going on. Vaccines, who has to be vaccinated, who doesn't. Some athletes don't want to be vaccinated. You've got testing every day in the village. We can't stay at the beach because we need to be they're keeping everyone in the village. The beach is 100 kilometers away. How are we going to warm up? It's all these questions that we got to iron out and we're preparing for. But again, nobody's going to have any advantage over anybody else. Okay. And we've got to put that into perspective and say, okay, this is what we're going to deal with. How we're going to get those medals, and put this aside and make it positive.
Greg, with regards to chatting that, because it's quite interesting to say that preparation beforehand is key, and obviously warming up in that is also is key. Not really knowing too much about the venue. Do you know much about the venue? Have you been there before, or is this a first for a lot of your surfers going to the Olympics?
Yeah, we totally know what we're going for. I've surfed events, many events at the venue and around Japan, and the athletes, we've spent time there testing boards, testing conditions. The waves change. They can be tricky, but they can be very good as well. If we get typhoon surf on the back end of that surf, we're going to get great waves. We've got 10 days of waiting, where we need two days of competition. So all the times we get a decent swell, my surfers will definitely excel with bigger surf rather than smaller surf. But these are all the things we've got to take into account. And like you say, the preparation, the warm-up, we know where we're going, but it's that actual warm-up on the day. We don't know what we're going to be in for. You've got 40 surfers from around the world, all of them arriving on a bus at the same time. There's only going to be so many waves for warm-up. So I don't know, we're going to have to plan that, and hopefully we'll work around it.
It's crazy times that we're going to, a lot of different restructuring of all the sports in general. And I know it's not just surfing, I think it's a lot of things here in what has to go into preparing for the Olympics, and it's going to be a very different Olympics not one that you would expect it to go to as your first one. But Greg, also having said that, how many surfers are in the South African team? Have we got two, or is it a team of 4 guys, or how does it work?
So we've got, each country can have a maximum of 2 men and two women. So we've got 1 male, Geordie Smith, and 1 female in Bianca Bakendorf.
Okay.
And now on the 28th, we've got a second the last qualifier in El Salvador, and we've got Matthew McGillivray. He's from Jeffreys Bay.
Okay.
He's going to be representing us there, and if he can make around about the top 8 or so in the world there, he can qualify.
Okay. So there's obviously a qualification, which is it's quite interesting to actually sit back when you chat about it and you think, okay, how do you know, each team's got 2 males and 2 females that can qualify. I mean, is it quite a hard process to actually qualify for the Olympics? I mean, you're talking now that he's got to be within the top certain rankings in the world. Is that just the way it is? Is Geordie our top male surfer, and what is his ranking, so that we can maybe get an indication of where we are with regards to qualifications for the Olympics?
So you've got 2 associations basically. You've got the World Surf League with the pro surfers, and then you've got the ISAs, which is the International Surfing Association. Now the International Surfing Association is what got us to Olympics, but now you've got the World Surf League. But everyone comes through the ISA, then gets the World Games, and there's the juniors and all that. So they've sort of mixed it up now, and so some have qualified through the WSL and some have qualified through the ISA. Geordie's been a top 5 surfer for 12 years. He's got his ranking and his spot through the World Surf League. Currently he's lying 5th in the world. Matt McGillivray is up to about 14th or so at the moment. But at this ISA World Games, he's got a really good chance of making it. I think the waves will suit him, and I think a top sort of 8 finish will get him there. Why I say top 8, there's 5 spots remaining for men. But a lot of the pre-qualifiers have to be at this World Games. So if a lot of your top surfers in the world who have already qualified, finish in the top 10, will go to the next 5 surfers. So I think he's got a very good chance.
That's good to hear. Greg, we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to dive into the local surfers down in East London. That's who we want to get into, and we're just giving the folks some intake with regards to what's happening with the Olympics and yourself. And when we get back, folks, we're going to dive straight into a topic on our local surfers, who's up and coming, and who are the surfers to watch for the near future. We'll be back shortly after this break. And we welcome you back from that short break, and I'm still here with legendary surfer Greg Emsley, and we were just chatting with regards to the Olympics, and we said we're going to go straight into the topic of our local surfers down here. Greg, obviously the show that we want to do is to get out there with regards to the local talent down in East London, especially the teenage surfers that are sort of up and coming, that are still at school. Currently in our area, who would you earmark as being our top surfers, either being a male and a female, that are currently still at school and wants to watch for the future?
Well, you've got to look at your 2 top juniors, and that's Zoe Stein and Daniel Emsley. So both of them have been outstanding. Their performance has been, their results speak for themselves. Zoe's won SA Champs for the last 2 years running, and that's open. Plus a good couple of junior events. She's gone over to World Games for the Olympic qualifiers for the last 2 years. She hasn't qualified, but she finished she finished 21st in the last one, and competing against her heroes, which was quite amazing. And Dan, World Juniors under 16 was 2019 was the last time that ran. He was definitely a standout there, ended up 5th, a year young in his age group. So the next time he hits the water there, I think he's going to be in for a huge result. So those 2 surfers, both still in school, studying hard, and they're going to be the ones to watch for me.
Greg, you obviously involved a lot with our local surfers, and you spend time with the likes of Zoe and Dan. I mean, is there obviously there's no, should say school league as it is. I'm not too sure if there was a league when we were at school, but now there's no sort of league. So all these young kids have to do is wait for obviously events that come up through our areas and then obviously take part. But do you actually do they have an opportunity to spend time with you? Do you get involved with them from a coaching point of view? How does the system work with regards to the young talented surfers?
Yep, yeah, I do a lot of coaching with them, get involved. We do, and with Buffalo City Surf Riders, we do from grassroots, the really young surfers, and we've got a lovely junior event that we cover there for what we call the grommets, the really young ones. So we encourage them to come along and surf. So we get big numbers for those events, and then we've got all our junior trials, junior fun events, and then we've got South African Junior Championships, which is a big one, and then we've also got the South African Surf Tour, which is it's like a mini pro tour locally, where you go to all the different spots along the coast, and you keep your ranking after each event. So that's a lovely one for me, because you're surfing different waves, and you're getting a bit of exposure.
And having said that, I mean, obviously the kids are really enjoying it, and I mean, our numbers in regards to surfing locally, are they growing, or is it sort of stagnated to a point where it's now just sort of you get the same old numbers? Do you feel that the sport itself is growing in our area?
The sport's growing a lot, especially since lockdown. For some reason, it's got a lot busier out there. I think there's kids have been restricted to a lot of sport. So now surfing is one where they can just go out. You've got social distancing. It's individual sport. So that's helped. And worldwide, I believe the numbers are up like ridiculous by the millions. There's like some crazy figure that's out there on how surfing's growing. So, and I think also with the Olympics, that's going to grow the sport even more. So numbers are definitely on the up.
That's good to hear. And within our community, between, I would say, Zoe and Dan, do you think they've got potential to go pro when they're out of school? Do you think that's an opportunity for them to make it big on the open circuit once they get to that age where they can leave school and see that this could be a career opportunity for them?
100%. They're both going all the way. Zoe, in fact, already turned pro. She was at the start of 2020. She had left school, did homeschool, turned professional, and did really well in Australia. And she was lying I think about 38th in the qualifying series. And then of course COVID hit and everyone was sent home, and so it was a tough year for her last year, not being in school. And then the start of this year, we did a bit of training in the morning, and she phoned me after the session and said, "What do you think about going back to school for my final year?" I said, "Brilliant idea. Nothing's going to happen this year." And she's back at school studying like mad. She's probably surfing a third of what she normally does. She wants to have a good matric. And it's done nothing. It hasn't hindered her surfing. She's surfing incredibly well. We had a junior event, under 21 event a few weeks ago, and she was scoring 9.5 out of 10 every way. So back at school, nothing's happened in the meantime. Halfway through the year, she'll finish strong and go back on the world tour hopefully next year.
Greg, with saying that, I mean, how much time do they put in as surfers? I mean, I know you spend time with Dan. He's your nephew. I understand that. Do they put in a lot of work? It's a lot of hours, and it's sort of like anything. You've got to put in the effort to get the results. How much time do these guys actually spend out in the water?
Hours and hours. If they could coach all day every day, I think they would. Both Zoe and Dan, they just thrive on it. I've often got to pull back and say it's time to just free surf now, or don't put too much pressure on yourself, have a bit of fun. And I think that's something that they've both learned to do, is really enjoy the surfing. But hours, I mean, if it's a weekend, they'll be doing 3 sessions in a day. A morning session, midday, and then an evening session. So they'll do a good 5 or 6 hours.
So it's not just goofing out there in the water. They're working hard.
Listen, when Dan and Zoe are in the water, there's not many ways for anyone else.
and we're fortunate down here in East London. We've got some great surfing spots and good areas to coach, and the beaches are clean. So that must add to their preparations or to their practicing. Do you find that we are lucky with what we've got in East London?
Oh, absolutely. We've got waves here almost every single day. We've got every type of waves, from beach breaks, reef breaks, point breaks. We've got it all. So we're very fortunate. I mean, you look at somewhere out like Hawaii, it's amazing, huge, perfect waves in winter, but summer comes and it's dead flat. So it's, we all year round we've got decent surf.
And compare it to where you've been in the world. I mean, for you as a surfer, you've obviously been to some exotic places and some great surfing spots. How would you compare our little old East London to some of the best places you've been to in the world?
Look, it's our waves can get exceptionally good. Spots like Nahoon Reef, Queensbury Bay, we've got waves that get exceptionally good, and they probably get good more consistently than like a J Bay, for instance. So J Bay is a much more perfect wave. It's one of the world's best, but it only breaks so many times a year, and that's winter as well. Summer you can go to J Bay, it's going to be flat. So Nahoon Reef will break all year round. It's a brilliant wave. It's got lots of different attitudes. It can give you a good hiding when it wants. So we're very fortunate, and we don't have crowds. We've got a good number of surfers in East London, but we don't have crowds, so we're fortunate we can get a lot of good waves.
And Greg, a question that I want to ask is, like, for a young surfer, a guy that wants to get into surfing, what advice can you give them to like a beginner surfer? What would you say to them is something that they should be looking to do now as they get into the sport?
I think like any sport, your real basics, your popping up, getting a nice strong pop up so you're nice and sturdy on your feet, and then time in the water, getting out there. And I say to surfers and nippers and life saving, it all, ocean time helps you in all different disciplines of the different sports across across the ocean. So the more time you get in the water, it's going to help you, and learning that ocean, just figuring out waves and tides and what happens out there.
And then also the other question I want to know, being a sporting father myself, and being a coach in behind the scenes, that people that do know me know that I'm obviously a head of sport, and I'm a coach as well as a father of two boys. We find it quite difficult sometimes. Well, I do sometimes in coaching your own children, and I know that Taylor and Dave obviously are very enthusiastic surfers. How do you separate, or how do you find a balance between being a role as a father and a role as a coach?
Well, I think I'm a brilliant coach for them, but they don't listen to me. So no, but it is very difficult coaching your own kids. Especially you know what you want them to do. And I think in that situation, it's good to get outside help. And so I found using other people is a good thing, and letting them do their own thing as well. So I don't like to overcoach people especially when they're younger. As they get older, it's fine to do a bit more coaching, but surfing, you need that rawness. You've got to have your own style, and I've left my kids to find their own rawness and then slowly tweak it as they're getting older, and they've got to have their own style of surfing. So coaching, it is tough. It's sometimes nicer when they're doing other sports. I can sit back and it's someone else's problem, and I can just enjoy it. So I quite enjoy that. But when it comes to surfing, I try and give them advice, and we've got a lot of really good coaches around East London. So I try and hand it over to them, but it's hard. You're standing on the sideline shouting and want to do the work for them.
I can say the same thing with my youngest when the polo came along, and it was actually quite nice to sit there. And Gary said it's probably the quietest you've been when you watch a polo match. I said, yeah, because I don't understand the rules. so I think that is great advice. I think we sometimes take the same advice from our side. It's not always easy, and you've got to wear two different caps. I know as an individual sport it can be a bit more technical when you want to be a coach to an individual person, but as a team too, like I said, exactly what you're saying, get someone else to get involved, which is always a good thing. It's always amazing that I tell my son to do something like this when we were coaching cricket from a technical point of view, and it was like he didn't listen, and then I'll go and tell someone else around the corner, just tell him to do that, and they'll tell him exactly the same thing, and they'll take that advice. So I think it's a good relationship thing for you too, is for me is to separate the two, and just to ensure that you've got that balance. So Greg, with us going into a sort of like a new era of surfing, How do you see the future of surfing, and how would you want to be involved with surfing? Do you want to see yourself be involved in the pro side of things, or do you still feel that there's an important part of being involved in the sort of the building up, coaching of the younger kids?
Look, you've always got to do the younger kids, especially in your community. So for me, that will always be there, and it's going to be there whether I like it or not, because I'm going to go surfing and there's going to be a kid that's going to ask for advice, and you get involved. But I would like to do more on the pro side, especially as I get older and maybe when my kids are out of school. I have been approached once or twice to do that, but haven't been quite ready to travel and do that side of it. But that will be something I wouldn't mind getting involved in. And then just evolving with the sport and being a coach. You can't for 1 minute think, okay, you're the best coach and you know what's going on, because it's just changing so much all the time. You can take the coaching manual that I learned from in 2010 and all the, I've got all the coaching certificates I could get. But literally, I think I could almost throw that away because it's changed even from then. And talking to other coaches and meeting with them and stealing their ideas and that's very important for me, and I love that sort of time.
No, that is good. And sometimes you always look at your biggest opposition, and you always look at their coaches and you think, what is he doing? And you watch them and you learn from them and you take some of their advice and you tend to utilize it without them knowing, which is important. But what I want to ask you now is, with us coming to the Olympics, what do you think our chances are of getting a medal as a surfing community at the Olympics?
Well, look, there's no doubt about it. The 40 surfers that are going to be there are all really good surfers, and I don't think any one of them will think that they don't have a chance of getting a medal. So that's what you're dealing with. But in saying that, Bianca Buitendach is not on the world tour, but she should be.
Okay.
She's sort of retired. She was over traveling and that. She's a ridiculously good surfer.
Okay.
We've been building up for this for 5 years, and the last 3 years at the World Games she's been in the finals 3 years straight. So that's that is her consistency is amazing. She's 100%. I believe she's ready for that medal. Jordy Smith, on his day, when he's feeling it, you're not going to stop him. So I've got to make sure those two surfers are in that mode. I always say to Jordy, that MP song that gets you up. I said when he listens to that song before, no one beats him. So that's one of the things I often tell him. And then young Matt McGillivray, he's super focused. So if he can come into the fold, that will be epic. And we'll have those three surfers to push for those medals. And I'll tell you, Sastock is honest. They're wanting those medals from surfing. So
it's good.
They're supporting us. It's going to be very exciting.
Well, we're excited. I know that I'm going to be glued to the TV screen, and whenever there's a local person on, even whenever South Africa is on TV, we're just so patriotic to watch and to get involved, and knowing that surfing is going to be at the Olympics, and knowing that one of our own local boys is going to be there as the coach and have an influence on those guys, hopefully to get a medal. Greg, we want to wish you all the best of luck. I know it's not going to be easy. I know that the time coming to get there is always been difficult, and it's been a long road. But from our side, we wish you all the best in where you're going, and we know that it's going to be a successful event, and we just know that getting that medal is going to be important, not just for you, but also for your family and for the people back home in East London. So folks, please stay with us. We're going to be back shortly, and we're going to thank Greg for his time that he's come here and to spend time with us. We're going to go into a small little clip of events with regards to the two young talented surfers that Greg has mentioned, with Zoe Stein and Dan Emsley. We're going to interview them shortly. So from our side, we'd like to thank Greg. Greg, thank you very much for coming and spending time on the show and giving us a bit of education about surfing, especially within our areas. And we hope to see you bring back one of those medals from the Olympics.
Yeah, let's hope so. It's going to be beautiful to see those medals.
Folks, thanks very much, and we'll be back after the break. And once again, folks, we'd like to thank Greg for coming in last night and giving us that time, his time to give us an interview. We'd just also like to thank our sponsor, Noble Fitness Techniques, for their sponsorship towards that interview. And if you need anything, let us know and we'll put you in touch with Noble Fitness Techniques. Coming up next is a small insert on our talented sportsman of the week, and that is no other than Dan Emsley. And when we come back, we'll go straight into the talented sportsman of the week.
Hello, I'm Daniel Emsley. I'm 17 years old. I go to Mayfield College and I'm currently first in my age group in South Africa. I grew up right next to the ocean and my dad and all his uncles surfed, so it was inevitable that I would end up in the ocean. I started surfing when I was 5 years old. My favourite surfing spot is here at Nahoon. I live right next to the beach, so I can just walk down and the waves are quite consistent. I really look up to my dad. He puts lots of work in for the family and can still find time to surf really well, so that's lucky. I'm planning on starting the qualifying series for the World Tour this year and plans to turn pro hopefully in the next couple of years. Back in 2019, I qualified for the SA Junior surfing team and got to travel to America for World Juniors and placed 5th there. That was probably the highlight of my surfing career so far.
And welcome back to the show, which has been a fantastic interview show, Dan. We've had some great interviews on there. We had obviously Daniel Emsley, one of our inserts for our sportsmen and talented sportsmen, and obviously we had a great interview with Greg Emsley. So we're not too sure at this stage what's happening with any school sports, but Dan, is there any other sports happening within our community?
Yeah, there's club rugby this Saturday. One of the games I know of is Old Boys versus Buffs. Okay. At Old Boys, I think that will be a cracker of a game. And it's very unfortunate that you can't have spectators, you know. So hopefully we can get that game live streamed on Saturday for the viewers back home that can sit and watch in the comfort of their own home and support the guys out there.
Yeah, we are looking, folks, just to let you know, we are working on getting our Eagle Sports live stream going. At the moment, obviously, it was dedicated to some schoolboy rugby and some hockey and netball. But at the moment, with that being put on hold or suspended from the Department of Education, we are looking at other events within East London. So if you are aware of any other events out there, please give us a ring on 068 500 3635. Drop us a WhatsApp, or you can send us an email at the email address at the bottom of the screen, and we'll see if we can fit it in to our schedule. We're probably looking to try and get into that game with Buffs and Old Boys. There might be one or two extra surprises up our sleeves, but that could be another topic for next week. So we're hoping for a good week, Dan.
Yeah, we are. And just for any viewers out there who would like to get involved in our program and would like to sponsor the show, please do get hold of us.
Advertising is obviously a big part, and we obviously streaming this out to the YouTube network. It's seen a lot by a lot of kids and a lot of folks. So we've had some great feedback from our first show, folks, and we hope to bring you some very interesting topics. We hope that you enjoyed this evening's show, and we look forward to next week's, where we dive into a little bit of triathlon and biathlon, as well as biathlon, and we've got a very, very exciting guest on the show next week, Dan.
Yeah, very, very excited about it. I can't wait to show the viewers. The lineup is going to be great. Please stay tuned, keep following, share the link with all your friends and family, so that we can grow this show, and hopefully when sport comes back to normal, that we can really give everyone a taste of what we're about.
So folks, for that, that's the show for this evening. We thank you for your time. We thank you that you've enjoyed it. Please share the link, and we'll see you next week for episode 3.